Hello, my name is Craig Nash. I would like to welcome you to another It's a Grand Life. And you work with folks in the past, and sometimes you switch positions, and you never know when your paths are going to cross again. And that's been the case of our guest today, Grace Dezern, who she and I worked together 7 years ago in she's got experience running several senior living facilities, and I was putting physical therapy services inside one of those facilities, and we always got along great, but our paths kind of diverged a little bit, and now we find ourselves back in the same situation in running a grand family. And Grace, you got the picture to work. That is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And we're so glad that we've had some technical difficulties, and as we all know, technology is great when it works. But Grace, welcome to It's a Grand Life, and thanks so much for giving your time today.
Thank you, Craig.
So tell our audience a little bit about your background and what you do when you're not taking care of your grands.
Well, I'm always doing something, and I'm very grateful that the Lord has blessed me with this energy because I honestly, I don't know where it comes from, but I am a busy girl. So right now I am running a memory care community in Livonia, and I take care of folks that have dementia.
Okay.
And I absolutely have a passion for that. So I've learned so much from these folks, and then it's kind of like really gives me a sense of what it's like to work with my granddaughter as well, who's going to be 4 in October. My grandson, who I take care of, who's 10. But it's funny how when I learned to work with the elderly here in dementia and working with my granddaughter as well, they have so much in common. I'm doing a lot of the same care and love that I give these folks that I do the children. So basically, that's what I'm doing, working and taking care of children. But I do find the time to go out and enjoy my life with my husband as well on a weekend. So that's helpful.
So there is a little bit of a life there, right? It's
There is.
I know how hard you work in the facilities. I've seen you in action, just running down the
Right.
halls, and anytime there's an issue or a little fire that's got to be put out, you're all over it, and absolutely a pleasure to work with. Just a great partner when you're trying to bring in new care opportunities for the residents. But can you just explain to our listeners, when did your family become a grand family, and how long have you been raising your grands?
Well, it's been a year, and this started about a year ago, where problems started happening with my daughter. And it was not an easy scenario that was going on at the time. It was very devastating for me. It's not something I ever thought would happen in my lifetime. I felt like my daughter years ago, she did have a problem with addiction, but she had overcome that, and she was working and doing a really good job at being a mom and providing for her children. Unfortunately, the father of the child also is an addict. So I think what happened with Amy years ago, she had became addicted because the person that she was dating at the time, which is the father to the 2 children I'm raising right now, was an addict. And Amy's heart is big, and she always wants to help people, but she didn't know what it was like. So the story she tells me is she wanted to try it so she would know what she was dealing with. But she said, Mom, all I did was try it one time and I was totally addicted.
Wow.
So Amy also suffers from bipolar and personality disorder. So she does have some mental illness as well. So that plays a part of it as well. But she always feels like she has to be what is going to help her to feel normal. And this is how it all started, not taking the right medication. She doesn't follow through. This has been her whole scenario since she's been a young girl. So her mental illness started when she was young, and I noticed it. I did, try to get her help with, getting her into counseling, and then also putting her into a hospital to see if they could get her on the right medication. So this is something that's always been a part of her. But then she had that good 10-year stretch and she did so well.
Right.
But then she had Zoe. So when she had Zoe almost 4 years ago, I think what happened is probably a hormonal change, postpartum depression.
Mhm.
She was dealing with a lot, which Amy, with her mental disorder, it just all kind of just piled up. So I think she finally got a little encouragement where she was going to leave the father of the children, and then he started being an addict again. So she had him leave. But then it was too overwhelming for her to care for the children on her own because she really depended on him. And she didn't really have anybody to help her. So she just went on this binge with him. And then in the last year, we've tried everything to try to help her. I had put her in, I had her, committed into psych ward 3 times. Helped with her addiction, where my mom was helping my daughter because I couldn't take my daughter and I had the children.
Right.
So my mom, who's elderly, 83, and has a big heart, she tried to help my daughter. And again, we all know about Amy's mental disorder. So Amy's anxiety and all the other things, she just could never kick it. She tried different doctors. She tried different medications for the addiction. The methadone clinic that she was on for many years helped. But I think what happened then was after the baby, she was getting more stressed out. So she was turning to like alcohol. And
Right.
then the clinic said, you can't have alcohol with methadone. So they started cutting her methadone down, plus her hormones, just really sent her spiraling out of control. But during that whole time, and I was working in Ann Arbor, so I was driving 62 miles one way to work.
Oh.
Yeah, I did this. And then, I was worried about the grandchildren. So then I'm having to stop and see, are the grandkids, if they were okay.
Right.
It just became very worrisome. So I ended up getting my grandson. I just took him. I said, Michael, you're coming with Nana,
Yep.
Well, Zoe was very little, and then the father wouldn't let me take him. Take the baby. So eventually I ended up getting both of them because, they were selling everything, Craig.
Yep.
And I just couldn't believe this was happening to my family,
It's when you're going through it, you cannot believe this is happening.
No,
and the kids that we raised, we thought the scenario would be totally different. And in our case, our daughter refused medication, and she would go, and we had her in therapy many, many times over the past 10 years. And she was always, at least in her mind, smarter than the therapist. And she will hoodwink the therapist, and then they would become friends. And when you're friends with your therapist, they're really not providing a lot of therapy. And unfortunately, we're just reached the point where she just took off. And again, with the boyfriend and the heroin addict boyfriend, and we did what any good grandparent would do. We said, come on, grandkids, just like you said, let's go.
Yeah.
And did you plan on it? No. Was this in your budget? No, it was not. Did you, but this is what grand families do. And there's in the state of Michigan, Grace, there are 54,000 grandparents like us that are raising our grandkids, and that's just absolutely amazing. So, so how has so I know what I would. Well, why don't you tell us about? I know what your schedule is like, but why don't you share with our listeners what is it like to run a memory care unit and a senior living center like you have done so well for all these years, plus the commitments at home?
Well, honestly, Craig, I'm a type of person that is strong, so I set my goals. And before my father passed, I remember him saying how strong I was, but really inside I'm not. I'm very weak when it comes to my family because I have such a love for people and especially my family, and I just want the very best for everybody that I come in contact with. So it really takes special people to do this. I'm not going to lie about that. I think more than anything, I was angry because my life, I helped my mother raise my brothers and sisters because my parents were divorced, and I was always like the mother hen. And my brothers and sisters will tell you that. So I always watched over them. And then when I was young, I had gotten married very young. I was 18. I did not marry somebody that I should have, because this man was an alcoholic. And I was so young at the time, and I just didn't understand it. I hadn't even had alcohol at that time, except maybe one time in my life.
Right.
So we had two children, and then I just, was divorced. So I raised those two kids, and the father, he didn't have any real part to do with their life. And then from there, I started, I found a wonderful man, Tom, and Tom and I've been together for 35 years almost now. And he accepts me for me, but we also have two children. So Tom and I have children, and we have a 26 and 24-year-old.
Okay.
And now I have these grandkids. So it was like I was mad. Like it was my turn to live my life. And now here I am with another family, and I'm trying to support them. And it took me a little while to get over that. I mean, just the crying, like, how could this be happening? I was very upset about it. I did help my daughter get a house. I actually co-signed for a house for her at the time because she was doing so well, and she was so grateful. Just, oh, Mom, this is my dream. I can, my family, they're so happy. They have a backyard, and oh my gosh. Then, then it was the selling of the appliances. I mean, they even sold the air conditioning unit outside. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So then it was like, gosh, now I really got myself in a bind here because my name is on this house.
Right.
I was paying the payments on it and this and that. So finally, I did convince her to do temporary guardianship with the lawyer, for the children, and then also to get that quick claim deed so that, I can get that house back. So that part all worked out. Now the anger part, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I still wasn't a little bit angry about it because I didn't ask for it. But then I see all the good that comes from it too. And seeing my granddaughter, just because she was 18 months behind her, she went to special education. My grandson, I felt horrible for him because he had both of his parents and now he had nobody. And how scary is that for him?
Right.
Exactly. Grandma, how long are you going to keep me? Don't worry, Michael. You can stay here forever with Nana, Papa. Don't worry about that.
Right.
And I just, having to be honest with him and saying, telling him the truth so that he could understand, because as me being a child from a divorce, and I had great parents, even though my parents were divorced, that's another story I won't get into, but I had the support, and my parents were still able to work very well together, and they could, go to both of my grandparents' house because I'm all Italian, so we're just a big Italian family. So that part was really, really good. And so it's just hard to see your family struggle like this, the kids struggling. Yep. When is it going to cause down the road for Michael? Zoe won't know because she's so young.
Right.
But she's now, I think she surpassed. She knows, like, she's 3, and I just got her potty trained. My biggest struggle right now is that she has a hard time eating. She wouldn't eat anything but pureed foods.
Wow. That's
yeah.
That's a lot to add on to what you're already doing. To just raising the grandkids, and then you have a child that has additional needs, and that's
right. Yeah, because
by the grace of God, you're trained as a professional in this, a caregiver. So if there ever was a grandma who was equipped for this situation, it would be you. But how has it been different raising your grandkids from your own kids?
Well, I mean, I think it's a little different for a couple of reasons. So one is like your friends, though. I think, I've noticed that, they don't even ask anymore because they just know I'm with the grandkids all the time now. So that part isn't good. But, It's a lot more rewarding though, because I've already done it. So when I see them being successful, and like Zoe now, she knows all of her letters. She finally has eaten crackers and at least swallowing crackers, but she's very smart. She knows the sounds of her letters. Like the other day, I bought her some addition cards, and I hear her saying the plus and the equal. And I thought, wow, she knows the plus and the equal. I think that there is some gifted ability with her, but I also I do find it very rewarding, and we're very proud of her. And I have to give like probably 90% of the credit to Tom because he's home more with her, and
Right.
he's been such a great support because I can go to work without worry, and I
Wow.
know he's got my back. But I also feel horrible for him because
Right.
one, they're not his grandchildren, but he never ever mentions that, and he always is there to support me no matter what.
No.
For that, I'm very, very fortunate and very grateful for that.
Well, he's a saint, right?
He is a saint. He is.
Because it takes a special person to be part of this situation. Plus, you guys have already raised your kids, and you're thinking it. Maybe things will slow down a little bit, and it's just not happening at this time because we have to step in the role as grandparents, and yes, our friends unfortunately are going to pay a little bit of the price because we can't see them like we used to, right? Because there's always something going on, but when did you know things were kind of going off track a little bit with your daughter? Did you sense that early on before the kids, or we had this great 10 years of progress, and you were believing, oh, thank God we're on the right track here and everything's heading in the right direction, and then there was a relapse, and that is kind of really taken things back a little bit. But I know you are a very positive person, and I know you are a person of faith, and as am I. And what has your faith meant to you during this entire process?
Everything. I get very sensitive on this. I don't know which doctor would have popped in. It's just really hard because I couldn't have done it without God's strength.
I know. He
gives me the strength, and I'm grateful for that.
And you reached out and asked for a prayer on our Facebook page, and
that was very kind, very kind.
I thought that was great to have a community where we're all in the same boat, and I was just so excited to see all these folks praying for you, and they hadn't met you and didn't know how sweet you were, or what a wonderful person you were, or anything like that, but we're all in this together, and they're and I think that could happen anytime, Grace, with this wonderful group. It's a Grand Life Facebook group, but you really encouraged me when I first started this podcast, and I remember praying, Lord, if we could just be an encouragement to one person, and then you sent a note that said that this podcast, It's a Grand Life, was an encouragement to you, and we hadn't worked together in 6 years, I think, and I just want to encourage you. You're just doing a great job, and those kids, and as I say to my granddaughter, they are so lucky that we have the hearts that we do, and that we of course we would do anything for them, and we just want them to have the stability at home so they can learn their decimals and their pluses and their addition and subtraction and all those other things, and that's what you're providing your grandkids. I mean, it's really fantastic.
Yeah, and I really think the hard part of it too is that we want to believe, like I want to believe my daughter can get better. Yeah. But it took me a long time to realize that I can't do this for her. I just do have to let her go. Now, she's been gone like your daughter for the last couple of months. And just recently I've heard from her where she's reaching out and wants help. but I keep telling her that I can't help her. And that's really hard for me. And that breaks my heart because me, I can help the world. You know that,
I
Craig.
know.
But when I can't even help my own daughter, that hurts me to the core. And I have to really learn this tough love. And that was really hard for me. So I think what comes with that is just, she has to follow through. I cannot call these places. She has to call them. The things that these addicts go through to try to get whatever it is that they need because they're not working, they're
Right.
stealing, they're doing whatever they can. That hurts me to the core because she wasn't raised that way. But then I listened to their story as well, and this drug is just such a it's so powerful that to me it just almost turns them into a person we don't even know. They're just like a cult of going to do whatever they can to
Right.
try to get this, and it's crazy.
It is.
Um, I think if I had a bunch of money, what I would do, I do feel sorry for them to a point because I don't think that there is enough help out there.
Right.
They make it very, very hard for them because you have to be on the phone for hours, and I mean hours, 10 to 12 hours just to try to get an appointment.
Right.
This is crazy that these kids, my daughter, your daughter, all of them, they fell victim to this, and it just turned them very ugly to the point where they can't even watch their own children. That is something that I just can't even really understand how it can happen, but I see it happening to all of us that
And
are in this situation.
it happens across the board, and I'm seeing it, Grace, across the country.
Yeah.
Stories like ours everywhere, where they just, the kids become an afterthought, and it's just, when can I get the drug and get high again? And
Right.
it's
And then
such.
I also think that sometimes we're taken advantage of by the state as well. There should be something for us grandparents, for our children.
Right.
If I could open up community centers where, and I know they have different, kinships and different things that, but at the end of the day, I do feel like there needs to be more done for us as the caregivers of these children and for help for these addicts. I really do. And then I sometimes used to think people look at me like, wow, how could this happen? I never see myself in this situation
Never.
for any of us,
Right. And yeah, I've talking to a lot of folks, Grace. I've never met one that said, boy, I saw this coming. I knew 5 years ago we were going to be here, but no, that's,
Right.
we're dealing with some really powerful drugs and just really hard to,
Yeah.
or for a person just to overcome it. And peer pressure is really strong. And then depending on the boyfriend or girlfriend they're involved in, if they're really into it, it just seems to be almost impossible to walk away from until they're hitting rock bottom. And we're just, we don't know what rock bottom is going to look like for our daughter, but we want her to get there so she can, Lord willing, start this path to recovery. And
Yeah. It definitely sounds like the same type of story. But going back to my faith, though, I do want to say I pray every day. I pray on my way to work. I pray for the strength, and I finally feel that strength. I just finally gave to the Lord, and I say, Lord, I put this in your hands. I'm hoping that you're guiding my daughter in the right direction, whatever that direction is. Just make it be the right direction. And just give me the strength because I am weak when it comes to love and loving my family. But this time I finally became strong by putting it in the Lord's hand and trusting Him because I have children to take care of. I can't worry about somebody my daughter's 40 years old.
Right.
She is not a child. She knows right from wrong.
Exactly.
I also know with her disease and her mental illness that, she's trying, but, if she just, and I keep sending her, now that I had a little bit of contact with the number, but I hadn't till recently, I just send her, nice quotes from the Lord that says, help yourself. to get better. We're not giving up on you.
No,
You have to trust in the Lord and just follow his guidance. Go the right way.
I couldn't agree more. And I feel sorry for folks that don't have any faith, because going through this without a God that you can pray to and lean on and talk to when you're about ready to pull your hair out, it'd be very difficult to do this without faith. And I'm so thankful for the comfort of God and his word and what that means in our life. And it does not mean that we have it perfect, because we absolutely don't, but we do have someone who says, cast your cares on me because I care for you. And I just want to encourage our listeners that from wherever you are, what part of the country, Grace is hitting home a message that makes so much sense. We have to let go and let God handle this, and he will. And remember, he's in the resurrection business. That's when I pray for my daughter, I pray that he can pull her right out of the grave, because she's living in the east side of Detroit in burned out houses without plumbing and without electricity, and being satisfied with that. We got to be close to bottom, Grace, sometime. But
right. I'm sure my daughter's in that same situation, but it didn't come easy. I mean, it took me a year to really just put it in God's hands and believe that he's taken my worries away, because at the end of the day, I can't do anything.
You cannot. And no, it just, and that peace, what is it in the book of Philippians? It says the peace that passes all understanding, because it makes no sense when we have peace in the middle of these trials, and that's the right way to handle it. And I
know all of us, Craig, all of us grandparents out there, we all have this big heart. We love our children, but we love our grandchildren. And now I'm to that point where if they don't want to help themselves, there's nothing more we can do. We just have to put it in the Lord's hands and just concentrate on the moment, the day, and do the very best we can. We can't let that negativity get to us. We need all of our energy.
And my wife and I joke that we have a PhD in enabling, and we enable for years and years. But my good friend, my life coach, who was a guest on our program a couple of months back, said, until you say no and let them hit bottom, they're not going to get better. So
I went through the same thing.
Yep. And so we're now saying no, and we're unfortunately using tough love when we can to hopefully to see these kids come around. And I'm just so glad that we got reconnected, Grace, and appreciate your sharing with us today. And I hope you will come back again and share with us how life is going and how the kids are doing. And just want to encourage you. You're just such an inspiration to our whole audience, and to run like you do during the day, and then go home and take care of those grands. And Tom, God bless him.
Yeah. Right. Well, we're all one big family, and we're all in this. Nobody's alone. Right. But I have to say, this tough love, once you go through it, you get so proud of yourself. I know I am, because like you too, Craig, I was an enabler too, because we want to get them help. But and when people would tell me you can't do this, I would think, how could they not?
Right.
I mean, even though they've taken so much from us, and they put so much on us. We just kept giving and doing what we could. But then when you don't see the results, and they go out and they make these choices, these are their decisions, and we just have to let it go. And we are tough, and we are proud. So we just have to concentrate on what we have right now. And these are beautiful children, God's children, and we can only do the best we can. As for them, that's something they have to deal with.
And
right?
100% right. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to leave it right there. Grace put it all with a bow on it. We are doing everything we can for our grandkids, and we are optimistic and hopeful and prayerful for our kids that they will hit bottom and come around. But Grace, I couldn't have said it better. But thank you so much for being our guest here on It's a Grand Life. I appreciate you so much, not only your friendship, but your kinship in this journey, I guess, as well, too, because we're kind of going through this together. But thanks so much for being our guest here on It's a Grand Life.
Craig, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I always thought you were special, and I still do. And everybody out there, you're very special too for doing what you're doing. So let's just keep together and keep the prayers going and the faith, and we'll all get through it.
Keep the prayers going and the faith, and we'll all get through it together.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Grace, and we will see you very soon.
Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you for joining us for another It's a Grand Life. Remember to never waste your pain. God can use your situation to bless others even halfway around the world. Be sure and subscribe to It's a Grand Life on our Facebook page, as well as YouTube and any of the various podcast channels that feature the Grand Life podcast. When it comes to raising a grand family, remember the words of the Apostle Paul, who said in 1 Corinthians 13, "Love is patient, love is kind, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Love never fails." In leading your grand family, it's going to take faith, hope, and a whole lot of love. Please reach out to me. I can be a blessing to you and pray for you, or help you connect to free resources that can make your journey a little easier.